Welcome back to Surviving and Thriving, where we share with you the things that we have learned as we have transitioned our family from struggling to survive disease to thriving, right smack dab in the midst of it, in the hopes that something that we share can help you as you transition your family from struggling to survive disease to thriving, living life in the fullest, right smack dab in the midst of it. So we have been talking about life lessons from the garden. I'm sharing with you some of the things that I've learned while working in my garden, that how it applies to our life and it can help us as we overcome sickness, disease, illness. But today's lesson is going to revisit a story that we told in last month's lesson. It's the same story, but more things that I've learned from it. And I think this one is quite important because it will not only help you with life lessons. Well, all these videos don't just help you with overcoming sickness and disease, but it help you with life lessons, relationship issues, financial issues, emotional issues, mental issues, right? How do we overcome? Today's is very important for overcoming sickness, disease, any aspect of life that you can imagine. So let's revisit that story from last time, right? Well, you know what? I want to tell you something. When I was growing up, there are certain things that I knew were going to be consistent in my grandmother's house, right? My grandparents were always the stability force, right? And there were certain things that I always knew was going to be there. And I'm not going to talk about all the different things that I always knew was going to be there, but there was two things that were constant. There was multiple things, but two things that were constant on my grandmother's coffee table. One was a TV guide. Do y'all remember that? If you're in your 20s and younger, you don't have the slightest idea what a TV guide is. Maybe that like little thing that roll across the TV on your smart TVs, right? It's your guide. Well, it used to come in a booklet. If you're my age or if you're older, you definitely know what a TV guide was. The other thing, y'all remember that big old Bible? That big old coffee table Bible? Yes, coffee table Bible was a staple. The third thing, I said two, but we're doing three, was an almanac. My grandparents, they lived and died by that almanac, right? You didn't do anything without the almanac. And I remember it was like, I'm going to cut Tammy's hair today. Oh, my grandma, no, don't cut her hair today because, you got to refer to the almanac. And the almanac said today ain't a good day to cut hair. Everything revolved when you got your teeth pulled or went to the dentist or had a surgery. It all revolved around the almanac. And gardening was highly dependent upon and revolved around that almanac. Is it a full moon? Is it a new moon? It tells you when to plant your stuff that's going to be under the ground, your root vegetables, and when to plant the stuff that's going to grow above ground. It told you everything, right? Well, this year, the almanac said it's going to be hot. And not just hot, but like real hot, record-breaking hot. It was drought. It was going to be hot, okay? And as the year went on, all you heard was it's going to be hot this summer. It's going to be hot this summer. Prepare, prepare, prepare. Well, it came, then it was hot. It was real hot. Now, I told this story last video, right? Last month. But we're going to revisit it because there's something else that's really important, very important, that you got to get from this, okay? So follow me. Just stick with me, right? So it was really hot. It was drought. It was hot, okay? It was so hot. My garden looked beautiful. We had to buy covers. We had to do all kind of stuff to adjust to the heat to protect the plants. So everything grew. It was beautiful. It was being protected to bring down the heat, but it just wasn't producing because it was too hot. It was hot. And I told y'all my plants were sweating. I didn't even know plants could sweat, okay? And my plants were sweating. And it was hot. And so knowing that the summer was coming and talking to all my gardening friends, you hear some that says, I'm not going to garden because I'm not going to try to fight that heat. It's a losing battle. I'm not going to do it. Others said, well, I'm going to try a little bit and just see what happens. And some tried a little bit, and almost everybody, I would probably say, I don't want to say everybody because there might be one or two out there I ain't thinking of, but pretty much everybody that did a little bit either gave up or said that they couldn't win the battle and they lost their garden. I, on the other hand, said I'm going all in. I'm going to plant. I planted actually even more than I normally plant because I wanted to make some room for, what could happen, right? And I continued to plant all throughout the summer. My garden was beautiful. It just wasn't producing. It was too hot to producing. It was in survival mode. survival mode, right? And so it was frustrating. It was irritating, right? I wanted to quit. I wanted to give up. Sounds real easy, sounds real simple what I'm saying, but I'm telling y'all, I shed some tears. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pull stuff out. It weighed on me emotionally. It weighed on me a lot because I was dependent upon this garden. I did not like what was in the grocery stores, and I definitely didn't like the prices they were charging for what was in the grocery stores. I wanted good, healthy food that I grew for my family. So I had a purpose in my garden, right? And then I kept going because I kept hearing that still small voice last month video that told me to keep going. And when the weather broke, it only went down just a little bit and everything started producing, right? And just abundant harvest. I'm still reaping and we're in December, right? So let's talk about what I learned, something that I learned that I think is highly important. So going into the season, knowing that the almanac said it was going to be hot, all the meteorologists are saying it's going to be hot. Everybody said it. Nostradamus said it was going to be hot. I'm just joking about that part, but you know, they always put him in all the predictions. It's going to be super hot. We was going to have a lot of drought. So when I had to contemplate whether or not that I was going to sow or not, I had to look and see what was available for my family. Didn't like it. Didn't want to be dependent upon the world system. I wanted to give my family good, healthy foods because, you know, they messing with some stuff out there, right, with the food. And so I wanted to be able to grow like I normally try to do, right? But I wanted to do it on a greater level this year. So when I had to sit down and think about what's being predicted, what the almanac is saying, what the meteorologist is saying, what everybody's saying is going to happen, and I talked to my husband about it a few times, and here's what I always came up to the conclusion within myself and what I would share with my husband, is that if we don't plant, we have no other choice but to get this stuff that's being sold in the grocery store that I believe was subpar and I did not want to give to my family. Okay. Because only the best for my family, right? And I hope you feel that way about your family too. And I didn't want to be left with that. And I didn't want to pay those types of prices for what I thought was subpar. I mean, it wasn't even mediocre, it was subpar, right? And I also felt that I didn't know it to come. The world's kind of unpredictable. So I always want to be able to make sure I'm self-sufficient as much as possible. Okay. So when I sat down and I thought about it, well, here's the drought. Here's all these things. What's it going to cost me? It cost me more than I thought it was going to cost me. But I was willing to pay the price to get up early, to do what I had to do, consider the water bills, all that stuff to grow this stuff for my family. But one thing I was absolutely sure of, you ready for this? Here it goes, is that if I do not plant, I have no hope. I'm left with what's there or what's not there. I'm left to someone else to provide, and whatever they deemed was good enough for my family is what we're going to get. And I don't want to be left with the grocery stores. I mean, we all lived through the pandemic and we know all about that stuff, but I didn't like the quality, and I'm big on health for my family. Okay. And I wanted to be able to provide in abundance, and I want to help save my family some money because everything going up. Right. And I'm just kind of like one of them people that, you know, if I paid this much for it, you can bring the price up. I ain't gonna pay that because it ain't worth that to me. I know. Old fashioned, old school. I know. That's just me. Right. So I had to think about it. And what I concluded was there's no hope. If I was going to have a chance, that means I have to go forth, even if everything says it's not going to be able to happen. Even if all the predictions say there's nothing that can be done, you're not going to produce nothing. Now, you could see that the weather was having an effect by the produce that they were selling. It was subpar because they're trying to produce something. These farmers are trying to produce something in drastic weather where everything's against them, right? And so I decided to go ahead and go forward because I was sure that if I didn't go forward, I didn't have no hope. No hope of giving my family something else that's different. Because I knew that if I didn't go forward, then I was dependent upon what was being provided by the grocery stores, and I didn't like that option. So I had to go forward and I had to go big, right? And that meant that if something didn't produce or something got ate up by bugs or the heat was burning something up, it wouldn't. I kept producing in succession. I was going to keep trying. And so that's what I did. And then when the weather broke, I got a harvest, I got abundance, just beautiful. So here's the moral of this story. In life, especially in health issues. There are things that they say are uncurable, things that they say that you're going to have to live with, things that they say that this is the path, this is the pattern, this is the end result. There's nothing that you can do about it. That happens in all aspects of life, whether it's relationship, finances, whether it's in mental health. We're going to have challenges that seem like they're overwhelming and that you're not going to be able to get out of it. Like there is no hope, right? One of the things I learned from working in the garden, one of the things I learned from life is this, is that even when it looks like there's no hope, you better have hope. And you have to do. Because if you don't do, you're going to get that end result that the world is predicting and that the world is saying. And sometimes it can look like everything is against you, but you still have to go forward. Because if you don't go forward, there is no hope. But if you go forward, you may not get it. But that's okay. You gave it your best shot. You went for it. If you got the result the world said, what does it matter? At least you tried, right? But one thing I learned is most often when you go forward, you can get a different result. It may not be easy. It may be hard. You may want to quit. It may cause you some hardships. It may exhaust you because you have to exert a lot, but you can get a different result. So there's a story in the Bible that I love, okay? And I'm going to share this with you. Now remember, this is a true story. It's in the Bible, okay? So this really happened. So there was a city that was being besieged. They were surrounded. Nothing was coming in. No goods was coming in. No goods was coming out. Sound like the pandemic, right? Nothing was coming in, right? People were getting hungry. No supplies, no food. Everything was coming to a shortage, okay? And the people were hungry and they were doing some drastic things, okay? But there was these lepers. Now these lepers, they were considered unclean because, well, they were contagious. Being around them can make another person unclean. And they didn't look all that great because depending on the kind of leprosy they had, could discolor their skin, stuff could have been falling off their body. They had a contagious disease. So they had to stay outside of the city so that they didn't contaminate and pass that disease on to people who were inside of the city. And it was illegal and unlawful for them to come around people. They can get a lot of trouble. It could cost them their life for that because they're endangering the lives of other people, right? Sound like something we kind of just went through, right? And so these three lepers, they were like, look, we hungry, we gonna die. The city's being besieged. They like, this is it, we gonna die. So one of them had this great idea and he said, look, he said, we can either go into the city, even though it's illegal, and it could cost us our life, right? But we can go into the city. He said, but there ain't no food in the city. They being besieged, okay? But we can try that. He said, but you know what? The army that's besieging everybody is out there. They got plenty of food. So we can go out there to this army. They can take us captive. They'll probably kill us because, you know, hey, I'm ad-libbing, I'm Tammyizing it, right? Because, hey, we got leprosy. But if they take us captives, at least we get to eat, right? And if they kill us, no big deal. We're going to die anyway, right? The siege is going to kill us because it's famine. Or we can go out there and they kill us. We're going to die either way. But if we go out to this army and by chance they let us live, and by chance they just take us captive, well, at least we're going to eat, right? So they decided to go out to the army. Well, when they were going out to the army, the Lord did what he does, right? And scared this army off. They heard the sound as if this bigger army or somebody was coming towards them. They got scared, got confused, started fighting each other, took off, right? And they left the camp. So when these lepers came in there, they had all the spoils. This army done fled. They left all their gold. They left everything they had, all their clothes and all their food, any cattle, anything they had, they left it, right? So if nothing can come in, whenever goods was trying to come in, who do you think ended up with all them goods? The army that was besieging them. So these lepers were there and they were eating, they're feasting. They're like, oh my gosh, a miracle has happened. We got all this food, right? But then they say, hey, why share all this food to ourselves? Let's go back and let the king know, because if the king find out all this, they're going to kill us too. So let's go let them know and let everybody in the city eat. What's the moral of this story? Sometimes in life, you're going to find yourself up against a rock and a hard place, and it looks like there is no way that you can go. There is no way that you can win, right? But like these lepers, we sometimes have to make decisions to go ahead anyway. Sow your seed and grow in a drought anyway. Because if you don't, there is no chance, there is no hope. You left. Either way, you're going to get that end result. If you don't want the end result and you go for it and you get the end result, what'd you lose? You was going to get it anyway. But if you go for it and you go ahead and sow that seed, you go ahead and you go into the city, then there's an opportunity for a miracle to happen. There's an opportunity for you to change your destiny. Sometimes, y'all, I found that people will say this is the end result of something, and it ain't always the end result. It's the end result if you go down that pathway. Oh, but when you mix stuff up and you put forth some effort and you try your hand at some stuff, you change that pathway and you can get a different result. So what am I telling you? That sometimes in your life, you're going to have to look at what you're going through. You're going to have to look at that sickness. You're going to have to look at that disease. You're going to have to look at that illness, and they can say it's set like this, and you can get a different result. I am a living witness that that is true, not just because of my gardening, because of what I've been through. I'm not supposed to be able to get up and do the things that I do. I'm supposed to be living, a life of just existing. Actually, I ain't even supposed to be here if you really want to know the truth. Now, the Lord has brought me back a few times. When I flatlined, he brought me back, and I praise him for that. I'm grateful to God for life. I am. But I tell you what, as many times as them doctors pronounced a death sentence and God said, you shall live, I'm grateful. But I'm going to tell you why a lot of that did happen. Number one, because of the grace and the goodness of God. But number two, because I didn't go down the pathway that they said I should have to go down. I didn't take that prediction and that doom and gloom and say, that's it, so I gave up on life. I'm just going to hang in there until the end comes. Or I'm just going to give up and hope the end come quicker. No, you know what I did? I ate right. I exercised. I fought. I prayed. I believed God. I did my confessions. I researched. I did everything I can do to fight for life. Even though they said it can't be healing there, I still do stuff for healing for my body and believe God. And you know what? As a result, I have a full life. Do I get to do all that I want to do? No. Do I fight every day? Every day is a fight. Everything I do, I'm pushing through. But guess what? I'm living life to the fullest in the midst of it, right? I tell my family a lot of times I did it. It wasn't pretty. I didn't look pretty at all. I looked like a hot mess. But guess what, baby? Hey, I did it. I'm still living life. I'm still doing. I'm still thriving instead of trying to survive or just waiting for death to come and take me. When I see doctors, when I talk to doctors, they all look at me and say, you know what? You don't look like the people that go through what you're going through. You don't even look like you deal with that. Because I don't let it take place in my life. Because you have to look at stuff and you have to say, I'm going to go for it anyway. Forget what my friends is doing. Forget what everybody else is doing. Forget what all the predictions are doing. You have to go forth, right? There was a song. It said, don't believe the hype, right? Hype might have some truth to it, but don't fall for it. Go for life, no matter what. No matter what it looks like. If you don't move forward, there is no hope. There is no hope. Remember the movie Braveheart? I didn't watch it all because I don't like all that gory stuff. But I got to see a little bit of the end of it with my kids. And they were telling the Braveheart guy, don't go, don't go, don't go. You know it's a trap. And he said, yeah, it may be. But to get victory, we got to go. We got to take the chance. He took the chance. It ended up costing him his life. But guess what? What he was trying to do in his life that he couldn't get done, got done because of his death, and the overall victory came. So sometimes you gotta go when they say don't go. It is scary. It'll have you shaking in your boots, but it is the only way to victory. Think about all the wars that we fought as a country. Think about the battles. Think about the Civil War. Things that look like it should not have happened. It should not have come. Look at David and Goliath. This small little boy taking out this big giant. Everything said it can't go. He got a big army shaking in his boots. Everything said can't happen. Don't go. But this little boy said, I'm going for it. You got to go for it. Have hope when there's no hope. Go forward when they say there's no use, because that's the only way to victory. No one in this world that you know of and you look up to or that you've ever heard of has ever done anything great when the door said, just go. It's going to be easy for you. It never happens that way. Everyone has gone against the grain and gone when they knew that death was a possibility, when they knew what could possibly happen, with everything it said. Everybody who's gone before them, this is what happened to them. They end up killed. They end up this. They end up that. But they say, you know what? If there's a chance for change, I got to go forward. Name them. Who you want to talk about? You can talk about Martin Luther King. You can talk about Gandhi. You can talk about Mother Teresa. You can talk about Nelson Mandela, right? You know about who you want to talk about. It's the way of the world, y'all. It's the way of life. And I learned that in my garden, but I actually learned that in life. But that just confirmed it for me. And here's another thing you need to get from it, and we're going to wrap this up. You are going to want to quit. You're going to want to scream. You want to give up. You're going to feel like at times you can't go no further, like you done gave it all up and you done it. You done been there before. I done gave it all up. I can't do no more. I ain't got no more to give. And then you end up finding it from somewhere, and the Lord grace you and you get your second win and you go further, right? We all go through that. We've all been there. I felt like that in my garden. I would be out there and they'd take everything from me. Now I just want to just grab stuff and just rip it out. I did. I was screaming, ah! My insides was just, that's what I would do. I wouldn't do it out loud because, I didn't want everybody looking at me and you outside, right? I was like trying to be composed, but that's what I was doing. I want to rip this out. This drought, it's just this heat. This just, I was just frustrated with my garden. And we feel that in life, right? But here's the thing. When I felt that the strongest, there was times when I would feel it, but I could push it back. There's times when I feel it, but I can keep it at bay and I could talk, I can encourage myself out of that place. But it got to a point where it was like, I didn't want to look at the garden. It was horrible. I was going through emotional issues because of my garden, y'all. And when it got the worst, and when I hated it the worst, I had to keep going. But shortly after that was right before my breakthrough. See, sometimes we hear that, you're going to want to quit right before your breakthrough. So you feel like I'm going to quit. So tomorrow everything should be better. It wasn't like that. I still had to persevere, but the perseverance was not as long as I thought it was going to be. It was shorter than everything else I went through. When it got to this absolute worst, the absolute height, and the height that I thought was the worst, there was times that was worse than that. So you never know when the worst is. But what I do know is you got to persevere through each one of those worst till you get to the absolute worst. And then behind that, there's a victory. You may have to persevere a little bit longer. You may have to go through a little bit longer, but it's a short and longer, and you're going to get your victory on the other side. So you can't stop in the middle. You got to fight through the darkness. You got to fight through that wanting to quit. So I hope something in there was helpful for you. I hope you were able to catch something as I tried to impart into you. You have a wonderful Christmas, because I won't see you until the new year. May God bless you. Okay? And I'm going to give you a challenge if you're willing to take it. Here's the challenge. This month, love. I'm not saying be a doormat, let people walk over you. You have to give something to everybody. Even for Christmas, it ain't about the giving this year. Let it be about loving. Let somebody in traffic, even if you're in a hurry. Ooh, that's a hard one, right? Smile when you're in the grocery store. Be nice. Spread some love, because this world needs some love, y'all. That's why people shooting folks up. We need some love. Be nice. Compliment somebody. Can you do that? It's a challenge for you this month. I'm going to challenge myself and try that this month, okay? So today's the first day of the month. I think we can get started on it. How about that? And I will see you in the new year. And remember, in all things, at all times, be you. Do you be who God called you to be. Until next time, bye-bye.